If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Welcome to the new Chemist Podcast. We're glad you're listening. Feel free to download this podcast on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and a variety of other platforms. On the new Chemist, we discuss chemistry, which simply put is the science of change, as well as the other careers, community, research, and COVID-19. We're happy you're tuning in. My guest today is Malcolm Danmola, an engineer programming manager at Apple. Thanks for joining me today. It is good to hear from you. Just briefly, I'll inform my audience about you. Malcolm was a colleague of mine at Georgia Tech. He completed his Bachelor's of Science in Business Administration with a concentration in IT management. He was active in Georgia Tech Student Ambassadors, Student Alumni Association, NSBE Conference Planning Chair, Vice President of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, and NPHC Vice President of Internal Affairs. Currently, he is pursuing a Master's of Science in Technology Management at Columbia University. He served in a variety of roles in IT and is very adept and intelligent and accomplished as a young person. Please welcome Malcolm. Thanks, Malcolm, for joining me today. It's so good to have you on as a guest. Malcolm is a good colleague of mine from Georgia Tech, very intelligent, studied business administration with a concentration in IT management. So Malcolm, as we begin, what have been your long-standing interests?
Yeah, hi, David. So I just want to start off by, again, thanking you so much for giving me the opportunity and the platform to be on the show. I am truly honored. Like my long-standing interest in the field of business computer science really stems back to the early 2000s. At that moment, as a child, I loved everything about Steve Jobs. I know I work for Apple, but I was one of those fanboys back then that literally loved everything that he was doing at the time, the creation of the iPod, the creation of iTunes, and then really just changing the game when it comes to how people are listening to music. I think, the biggest impact that he had on my life was pretty much the intersection of music and technology, because they kind of go hand in hand, that was at a time when Napster was doing their thing. And, everybody was kind of, into a lot of illegal kind of ways of listening to music. But he found a way to kind of bring it to the table in an easy way as well. And that really spoke to me a lot. And I talk about music, David, because I actually played trumpet for 12 years. And I was also drum major in my high school band. And so music has always been a part of my life. So my main longstanding interest, has always been music and technology. And I thank Georgia Tech for kind of giving me that space, because the good part about the Scheller College of Business was that it sits, of course, in Tech Square. So it's kind of the, the best of both worlds. You are at the intersection of not only business, but also technology at one of the world's most, remarkable engineering schools. It's the truth. Like, once you realize that, you can't have technology without business, and, the other way around as well, I think that's really where you start, kind of impacting organizations and adding value in everything you do. So, I think, and right now, it kind of led me, my passion from, my childhood led me to my current role, which is an engineering program manager at Apple, specifically with Apple Fitness Plus, because again, you cannot work out without music. If you work out without music, let me know.
Yeah, I work out with music all the time.
Yeah, definitely. Like, while you're on the bench press, you're listening to that great song. Same thing with while you're running, you're listening to something that can, match your energy at the time. So still, again, like, I'm finding that those longstanding interests that I had as a child are now kind of coming into fruition, and I'm still trying to hone in on that,
Mhm.
to find out, how I can still impact change in the intersection of music, technology, and business.
Okay, that's good. That's good. So yeah, man, that sounds good. So you talk about adding value, along the lines of adding value and keeping the big picture in mind with your career and your life. How do you maintain view of the big picture in your life and in your career in general?
Yeah, definitely. So I think the biggest thing that people kind of, I guess, make a mistake on in life, kind of, is that they're chasing something that they're really not passionate about, right?
All right.
I kind of made that mistake. That's why I made that mistake early on, where I was like, okay, I definitely know that I want to, be in the field of technology, but I just don't know, what I want to do with that, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
So I started off as a computer engineering major at Tech,
All right, that's fair.
and and I thought that, okay, this is step one to actually achieving the bigger picture, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then I realized that I did not like, learning about transistors. I mean, they're cool. Don't get me wrong. Not knocking anyone that's compy, but like, I think it's a very, very, very important, thing to do. But is that I did not want to hone in on just the hardware or just the software side with CS. I wanted to really see how we could use the technical pieces from CS and Comp E and apply those to the bigger picture, which is a business, right? Or my entrepreneurial spirit that I hope to tap into one day.
Okay.
So I think really once I found out, early on at Georgia Tech that, I really need to be a business student that focuses on technology and CS, for example.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's when I really started to hone in on, I feel like, my purpose, kind of, and
Oh
that's what
wow.
led me. Yeah, that's what led me to Chevron at the time, where I was a business analyst,
Mm-hmm.
also an IT infrastructure analyst as well in Houston, in California.
Oh wow.
And at that moment, I really kind of, found that, like, I can speak to the engineers about, their low-level code and things of that nature, and kind of get into the nitty-gritty of why they're creating something. But then now I can speak that language, and also bring that to executives and other stakeholders around the company, to let them know, like, hey, this project can kind of help you in these areas, and the technology speaks for itself because of this. And really, being that liaison between the engineers and also, other, stakeholders as well, is where I kind of feel like I can add the most value to that bigger picture right now as well. So yeah, that's kind of how I had to, think about it back in the day, was just, stop chasing, something that you're like really, really not passionate about, and it takes time, to find out your passion. And that also changes throughout the course of, my career. So I'm pretty sure that, that'll change again, because that's just life.
Yeah, yeah. So you bring up a lot of key points, adding value, which is codependent or is related in some ways, it's codependent to your skill set, your passions, your interests. That's one thing to
Mhm.
keep in mind. And then you also bring up another standpoint of your passion might change depending on the stage of life you're in. But I think your vision for your life may, for the most part, typically remains the same.
Yeah,
Yeah, your
for
passion or
sure.
your interests at that particular on this particular subset or career or area may change, but your vision for your life, whether you want to make an impact using this type of platform or make an impact using this type of information, I think that may remain the same. But yeah, dude, that's an interesting point. So you talk
Yeah.
about adding value. How have you been adaptive and creative in the field of business? So you're working in IT, you're working in business, you're working in a burgeoning, I would say in certain ways, it's exploding with creativity. Um, how are you adding to the creative flair or the adapting new technologies for the field that you're working in?
Yeah, definitely. That's the thing. I think I love this question so much, only because technology forces the human race to kind of like adapt. You know, going back to our days of how we were watching, take-home DVDs like Blockbuster, right? That was displaced by Netflix, and then in streaming. So really people have to be adaptive, right? And I think going back to my early career at Chevron, at that moment, I was able to see how technology can impact the oil and gas industry, right? Because when people think about the oil and gas industry, we think about, just, those oil rigs and, things that are in Texas and those places like that, and what we see at the gas pump, right? And those prices. But what's behind all of that is still technology, right? And I think that once people kind of hone in on that and see like, oh my goodness, technology is is everywhere. That's where you start realizing that, like, you can understand and apply those processes elsewhere. So once I realized how technology can impacted, the oil and gas industry, I wanted to come over to big tech because now you kind of see how you can change processes and apply them to efficiently create things over there. And now you can kind of, do the same thing over at a tech company and really I guess hone in on the bigger picture as well, going back to that. So what do I mean by that? I'm talking about iPhone, as well as our stores where I started off at Apple. And even with fitness, I'm still using some of the project management and program management skill set that I acquired in another industry, right? And I was able to adapt, to my new location by using the same things that I learned elsewhere, right? And I think that is the biggest thing where people, like, I think millennials as well, with us going from, job to job and not, like, I guess, staying stagnant. We're now given the opportunity to apply all of the stuff that we learned elsewhere to, our current place where we're at, right? And I think inside of the fitness realm now, this is probably the first time that I actually, I think my job and career allowed me to feel uncomfortable because this is a new place for me, right? I was an avid user of fitness applications, but now, I'm learning about new things that I had never heard of before, in the fitness world. But at the end of the day, the processes are the same, right? And like with Agile, Scrum, things like that, with program management, as you probably heard of. But I'm able to now apply that to the fitness processes that we're doing over here at Apple Fitness Plus. And also I'm able to kind of add value where I see fit as well. So if we see that like something is not working out, for an example, I can then go in and say, hey, let's try this. And then now having a conversation with the engineers, it kind of adds value right there, where we have kind of an open roundtable of just discussion.
A value in terms of thought, adding value from the perspective of thought. Yeah, so that's almost like, in some ways, I think that's like tertiary industry to a certain extent, which you are adding value, you're extracting the equity, you're extracting value from thought.
Yes.
So that's a big component in terms of industrial development, industrial change. But so my question to you is, you served on Georgia Tech Student Ambassadors, on the Student Alumni Association, NSBE Conference Planning Chair, Vice President of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity. You've done a lot of things and you've accomplished a good bit for a young person. So my question to you is, how have you sought or found the right environment for you to thrive intellectually or academically? So how did you find those environments? Because you now headed to Columbia for a master's, Columbia University, Ivy League, in New York, for Master of Science in Technology Management. How have you found these environments?
Yeah, definitely. So as you know, David, like Georgia Tech, we have so many clubs.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, so many clubs, so many organizations. And you kind of, as soon as you get on campus, it's easy to get overwhelmed, right? But I think the biggest thing for me personally was, as soon as I got to Georgia Tech, I saw a lot of Black greatness immediately.
Yeah,
as soon as
I agree.
I got to Georgia Tech.
I completely agree, dude.
Yes, exactly.
It's still replaying in my mind, to be honest with you.
Exactly. Like, we were really, it took me
blessed.
a second. It took me,
yeah.
Very, very, we were blessed. And I think it took me to kind of leave Georgia Tech to realize and talk to other students around the nation, especially at NSBE, that Georgia Tech is different, and
Yeah.
we have our own problems, but like at the end of the day, we still reach the common goal of greatness. And I think really just seeing the great people that I was looking up to at the time at Georgia Tech, and I saw what organizations they were a part of and also the clubs they were a part of, I was like, I need to be a part of that, and really that's kind of what led me to even my fraternity, Alpha Phi Fraternity Incorporated, like, because literally every single individual in that chapter, they were reaching their goals, and they were people that I was actually looking up to at the time. And even with NESB, I think what people also don't really know, because I don't talk about it a lot, but my uncle actually was a part of the Chicago Six. So
Wow.
he actually founded NESB at Purdue University with other people as well at that institution. And so NESB has been a part of my life ever since birth. I remember hearing about it when I was a child from my mom, and even before he passed away, like he was even talking about it at a young age for me, and I didn't even know that NESB was going to be such an impact to my life later on in life, even as a business student, and even currently. But like that was really, 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 I think one of the most impactful organizations in my entire collegiate career was also the National Society of Black Engineers, along with Alpha. So I think trying to find my niche, and also like the right organizations, I think all of those orgs taught me something that I could really apply to my current life and also my career. And even the networking aspect of it, you just never know who you're going to meet 10 years from down the road, or even just a few days after graduation. Like, I was meeting people that, were like, oh yeah, I was an ambassador. They were like, I was an ambassador back in, 2010, like, let's get lunch, like, it's like, what?
Yeah, let's get lunch, man. Let's get lunch.
Yeah, let's get lunch. And I'm like, cool. And then now I'm seeing like what that organization did for people, and did for that person at the time, and how it's kind of, positively impacted their life too. And so I really think that at the time in college, I really wanted to make sure that I was, placing myself in areas that was going to be beneficial to my overall career and my overall success that, that I'll have when I look back, at the age of 90, hopefully, God willing,
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely.
That's good. So, Michael, another question for you. What have been some of your most effective and impactful ideas to date? What would you say have been in your role that you play now, or even in your role in those extracurricular activities? What have been your most impactful ideas to date, and what has contributed to you being able to make or implement that impact?
Yeah, definitely. So I think really the most impactful ideas would probably have to be like what I'm currently working on at Apple. So of course, Fitness Plus, we launched in December 2020. It was a longstanding effort from people before I even joined the organization. I actually wanted to join specifically Apple Music. But my manager was like, we have a great gig here where you'll do both fitness and music. That's kind of how I got into this area. But a lot of the ideas that I have kind of thought about really apply to, like I said earlier, the processes, and like how I can actually ensure that we are efficiently, driving our project to completion. Right. I think that's the biggest thing that an engineering program manager can do, is like basically, make sure that we're running as efficiently as possible. So while I know like with Apple, of course, we can't talk about too much.
That's fair. That's fair.
But yeah, I do want to say like for sure, like, like I think especially in the music realm, like how I work with a lot of the teams that work with those trainers, like with the way that they choose music. Basically one of the tools that I support basically actually helps that trainer choose the songs that they want inside of a workout. Anything that goes into that kind of goes across my desk, like where I'm
Mhm.
trying to make sure that, the tool is, we're efficiently, running that to make sure that the trainers can actually be in the studio and record their stuff on time in those videos. Same thing with like a lot of the metadata that goes into, actually the actual application of Fitness Plus, making sure that that is there, and that it's QA'd, and that it's actually going to look the way that it looks right now. It takes a lot to actually get to that point, along with even the programming efforts as well. That's another one of the teams that I support. And by programming, I'm talking about like as soon as you open the app, there's a person that actually has to do all of that. But there's, again, a tool that actually supports that. So, applying my ideas and also, my efficient processes to those nuances and those three tools is very, very, very important. So I have to say, like, what I'm doing right now really is, I feel like kind of impactful, because it's not only affecting just, my life and kind of my, learning of like, what I'm kind of doing right now, but also it's affecting X amount of people in 6 countries right now.
Wow.
So it's like it's really, 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 I think eye-opening, that like every time I get to work, I know that like, I'm making that impact change, amongst people's lives. And it's not just about me. It's like, let me think about what is best for the customer in this respective geo, with these, respective, nuances, because not everybody's the same. So
Yeah, that's fair.
yeah.
That's fair. So understanding your demand, the principle of demand, supply and demand, and understanding your demand, so that you could really be, not have a monopoly per se, but you could really be an expert in supplying what people want. So yeah, I completely agree with that. Yeah. So
Yeah.
how have you maintained balance, or how are you striving to maintain balance given all your responsibilities and accomplishments?
Yeah, I think that's a really good one too. Work-life balance is very, very important. Going back to when I first started at Apple, I found myself, kind of, and this is all personal. I really wanted to make sure that I was, really excelling, and I think, Georgia Tech kind of teaches us to, do that in everything that we do, along with some of the organizations that I'm in. But like also there was a cost to that. I was kind of sacrificing some of my weekends by trying to go the extra mile, which, at the time I was like, oh, to go the extra mile, I have to do this on the weekend, or I have to do this after hours. No, I think now 3 years into my role, I'm realizing that you can also apply efficiency to your actual career. You can actually plan accordingly to make sure that, your working hours work for you, and I think, especially with the COVID-19 pandemic, of course, I no longer have to go into the office as of now. But before the office, I didn't have to commute, an hour and 30 minutes one way to work. So I think really, kind of the, like making sure that like, the balanced life, kind of comes, easy. I think that it does not. You have to make sure that you actually hone in on those. And it's also a skill set that you have to actually add, that people don't really think about, Now I found that, just merely off the fact of planning my week out, on Sunday evenings, also, kind of blocking off certain slots in my calendar to make sure that I can, focus on my own mental stability as well after work,
Yeah, that's
and my
fair. Very
responsibilities.
important.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, actually, and being intentional about that too is very, 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 very important. And I think that's the biggest advice even that I can give to anyone that is interested in the realm of technology, especially, working remote, because now that you're remote, the expectation is like, oh, there is no commute, just go ahead and start. And then like, I found out that, oh, why is the sun still up while I'm working, so I have to make sure that like, that I, don't forget and lose sight of that balanced life that I am trying to ensure that I keep up. So,
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And balance is dynamic. It's not just a static instance of perfection, but it's a dynamic that you just have to adjust to. Yeah. So,
yeah.
how have you maintained vision and teamwork in your environment?
Yes. So pretty much with that, I think the biggest thing that I had to realize was that, you cannot do everything by yourself. The first thing that you do as soon as you get to a place like Apple, you kind of ask, how can I excel here? How can I be successful? And kind of like what I said earlier, the first thing that you have to do is network, build those relationships with people. And I think that has been the biggest help to maintaining my vision is that I've built so many relationships across the company, so many relationships, even externally as well, in the realm of technology. And I kind of have been allowed to, what am I trying to say? I guess kind of like maintain my vision because I seek out advice from others, right?
Okay, that's
And
good. That's
you
good.
kind of take you take a lot of the stuff with a grain of salt, but the ones that like really speak to you your life, you'll know what that is,
Mm-hmm.
and that has really helped a lot. Even with teamwork right now, right now as an engineering program manager, everything I do is cross-functional. There's nothing that I do that I can literally say like I did this by myself. If anyone ever says that, it's like, it's interesting, but at the same time, it's like, how did you do that? Let me know, because I literally have to work with everybody in these cross-functional teams to kind of reach a common goal. I can
Yeah.
still add value, but like at the end of the day, you have to really ensure that you seek out, that help from other people and also encourage other people to reach their common goals, or even like how we're maintaining, the pace of a project, for
Mm-hmm.
example.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, if I'm the only person that knows the timeline, nothing's going to get done, right? But as soon as I tell everybody about the timeline and they kind of tell me what their teams can do, now we're kind of like, a well-running machine.
Yeah, that's good.
Um,
That's good.
yeah, and we finally can actually reach our common goal because you have other people too. I think that teamwork is very, very, very big, I want to say, in my life, because you can't, be anything without teamwork.
Yeah, and the thing is, I think starting off at Georgia Tech and you starting and finishing at Georgia Tech, we come to understand the teams play a big role when it comes to scientific innovation, when it comes to scientific problems, and also when it comes to glasswork too. So, because
Yes.
yeah,
Oh my God.
played
Yes.
a huge role, very big
Exactly.
role.
Literally. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I want to say for sure, David, back in college at Scheller, I literally always asked, why are we working in groups so much? I was like, oh my God, I'm so tired of this. But I'm very thankful now, looking back 3 years, that they really allowed us to do that, because that's all you do. Like
In
in
real
your
life,
career,
yeah,
you're working
yeah.
in real life, no matter if you're in technology, finance, or consulting. Kind of the consultants always talk about when they're looking for other people and to join their company, do I feel like I want to go get drinks with you, after
Yeah, yeah,
work?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, it's big, because at the end of the day, we're around each other so much. And it's like that even at Apple. It's like, you have to work as a team to get the job done. So yeah, I really do thank, my background for that one, for sure.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, so why did you choose business? Why did you choose technology management as a field to do your graduate studies in at Columbia?
Yeah, definitely. So really, technology management, of course, that was my concentration at Scheller. And again, the reason why I chose Scheller was merely of the fact that it sat at the intersection of business and technology, right? Those two things, again, like I said, they go hand in hand. So today, really, in the highly competitive and global technology-based economy that we're in
Mm-hmm.
right now,
Mm-hmm.
we really have to make sure that these program managers, CTOs, CEOs, anyone that has some sort of stake in technology, has those key strategic and tactical skills
Mm-hmm.
necessary to drive organizational performance through, the use of anything, the use of technology, just to make sure that they're leaders in the field. Because, when you kind of create something in technology, again, like I said earlier, you're impacting not only yourself, but you're potentially impacting a lot of people, right? Even from the small people kind of don't even think about the notifications, the push notifications they get on their phone, but that push notification has a psychological effect on people. It really does. Yeah, it's very granular, right? And I think that I'm very, very excited to kind of go to a school like Columbia that actually invented the laser, or the first place to kind of find plate tectonics, for example, through the use of technology, and learn from those professors to kind of, I guess what I'm trying to say, like, I guess learn how to leverage technology as a driver for business process innovation and improvement anywhere, right? So and I know that right now, at Apple, I see, how, the executives, how long they've been there, and, how they have been able to be a driver for their specific roles. I want to do the same thing. I want to learn how to, enhance business performance through growth. I want to learn how to, kind of adapt and accelerate technology's impact on individuals as well. And I want to do that by learning with other people, the 30 people in my cohort, same thing with the like in-depth esteemed faculty as well. I want to learn from them as well. And I think kind of one of the main projects that I'm really excited about kind of doing is kind of focusing on algorithm implicit bias. Right now, for example, in the world of technology, a lot of the algorithms are created by white individuals, right? And I think that people kind of think of unconscious bias as something that a human does, just, unconsciously, like, you don't know that you're doing it, right? But how does that have an effect on the algorithms that we're creating, I'm very, very excited to kind of hone in on that a little bit, just to do more research and find out, about how we can ensure that we, stop this, and that we kind of correct and rectify this issue before it becomes something that is, spun out of control. Right now, I do think that we can course correct, but if we don't course correct, it can get really bad. So
that's fair.
Yeah, really, really excited about that.
Yeah, man, that sounds good. And as we conclude, what has been some of the most beneficial advice you have received?
Yes. So the most beneficial advice I've received, let's see. I think that would have to be, just going back to what I was saying, building relationships. I wish I could give you something else, but like that truly has been profound in my life. Because literally you don't know what you what the impact will be from somebody until it actually happens later on in the timeline of your life, right?
I agree.
Yeah, and really, I think that has happened over and over and over again, where somebody has told me something, and then I didn't understand it then, but just go a few more steps in your career and you see it plain as day, and how, had you not listened to that advice, you could have, gone down the wrong, spiral, right? So I think really like building relationships has to be one of the biggest pieces of advice that I received at the time from my mentor at Apple. And that has helped me in every facet of my life, professionally and also personally too. So yeah.
That's good. Yeah, relationships are very important, because at the end of the day, people are the drivers of a lot of decisions that we deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Exactly. And one more thing also, David, I want to mention is that a lot of the stuff that I've done as well, I've had to try twice. I know a lot of people that kind of give up, off the first try, and like I'm telling you, like whoever's listening to this right now, please do not give up on your dream, because literally that bright idea that you have could impact millions and billions of people. But if you give up at this very moment, you will not, see the light at the end of the tunnel. Even Georgia Tech, I had to apply to Georgia Tech twice. Columbia. I applied to Columbia in 2014. I was denied. And then I applied later on in life and I was accepted. So it really, goes to show, if you do try again, it will happen. Same thing with Apple. I was denied from an internship, but ended up working for them full time. So I think that's another piece of advice is just do not give up.
Yeah,
Do
don't
not give
give
up.
up.
As
Yeah.
cliche as it sounds, don't give up.
Yeah, and this is the thing, I'll share some more about my story. I appreciate you saying that on this show. Even for Georgia Tech, for me, I was waitlisted, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
then I got in, and then I when I transitioned to another university, I left on the dean's list, so I was in good
Yes.
standing. So, I still like to say not to flex, but to say you have to persevere. And I
Yes.
know it may be hard for a lot of people. I know it's hard for a lot of people now, given COVID,
Right,
given the
exactly.
losses, given the climate, the political, geopolitical, social climate. But you
Yes.
have to, whether it's a belief system, whether it's a value system, whether it's the people around you, you have to find something to hold on to, and you have to persevere. Because at the end of
Yes,
the day,
agreed.
I think in the long arc of history and the long arc of that relates to the narrative of our lives, I honestly do believe that there's a positive that can come about. So
Yes,
yeah.
agreed.
And of course, that
Totally agree. Well said.
that may be based in my faith system, which I think is an anchor and a root system for me in many ways.
Same.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
Malcolm, it's so good to have you as a guest. I think this was a really good conversation, and I'm glad you were able to take the time out of your schedule to join me today.
Yes, thank you so much, David.
Thanks for listening. We're glad you were able to tune into this podcast. Once again, this is The New Chemist, where we discuss chemistry, which simply put is the science of change, as well as the other sciences, careers, community, research, and COVID-19. Thanks again for listening. Note, the views on this podcast represent those of my guests and I.